Everyone, it's Nicki here. Now this is the time of the month when I would normally be giving you my rundown of the books that I've read for the last few weeks. However, I'm actually filming this a few months in advance because I happen to know that at the end of November and the end of December I'm going to be really busy. I'm not going to have access to my camera and I'm going to have difficulty filming those for you. So as I said in my end of October video, I will be sharing the books I read for the end of the year, but I won't be doing it until the new year. However, I didn't want to leave you empty-handed, so I came up with a couple of other vlogs that I could do, that I could film in advance and just set up to go live, even though I'll be moving around all over the place. So the first of those, for this November one, I came across the Guilty Reader tag, which seemed like a fun one to do. So I have scribbled, hopefully I can read my handwriting, down the questions, and I'll run through them all now for you. So first up, have you ever regifted a book? Yes, I have. More than once probably. I mean, I'm not a serial regifter. It's not every book I get I send on, but there's probably maybe 3 or 4 that I can think of off the top of my head. In those cases, perhaps I received one and I've already got a copy of it. So I happen to know someone who didn't have a copy and I would pass it on to them. Or sometimes I'm a very light reader. You'll notice on my shelves, unless I've bought books second-hand, or they're ones that I really love and go back to again and again and again, most of the spines are pretty intact. I'm not a big bender backer of the spines, that's not really a word, but just bear with me. You know what I mean. I read very lightly, and I can read a book and it doesn't look like anyone's touched it. So occasionally there's been 1 or 2 that I've read and I know I don't want to keep them, and I can think of someone else who'd really appreciate them, so I do send them on to those people. Number 2, have you said you'd read a book you haven't? Not on purpose. I can think of 1 or 2 where there's been 1 or 2 classics in the past where I've been convinced that I've read them, probably just because I know the plot so well, being classics, and it's only when I end up picking up one I think, oh no, I don't think I have read this yet. But I mean, all of those I have now dealt with the problem. I've now read them. There was just 1 or 2, I think Moby Dick was one that I was absolutely convinced I'd read, but then I got a copy not that long ago and was flicking through it and I thought, no, I don't think I have read this, but I have now. So it happens, but not on purpose. Have you borrowed a book and not returned it? No, I mean, I'm not a big book borrower, simply because I don't like lending my books because I'm always worried I won't get them back or they'll come back in a tatty condition, like considering how neat I keep them. So if I'm not willing to lend, then I don't like to borrow. The one change, or the one exception, I guess is the word I'm searching for, the one exception to that was Les Miserables. My copy is on the shelf. In fact, is it accessible? Sorry to dash out of frame there, but I should have thought to get this out first because this is a book that I bought for my mother for her birthday one year after we went to see the musical Les Miserables. You may wonder why it's now in my possession here in Australia and not with her in the UK. And the answer is the text is tiny. I mean, it really is. You won't be able to see on this video probably, but it is minuscule. And my mother just found she couldn't read it. So she lent it to me because I wanted to read the book as well. And she had another go and decided that it was too much and that she'd have to find a copy with slightly bigger font. So I ended up with it. And I'll keep this book here actually because it'll be relevant again in a moment. But yes, that's the only time that I can think of that I borrowed one and not returned it. And that was a gift afterwards anyway, so it wasn't that I just snuck it away. She told me just to keep it. So, have you read a series out of order? Yes, but never intentionally is probably the answer again. Once or twice I've picked up a book on NetGalley and requested it, and have only discovered when I'm granted it and I open it that it is the second in a series, because nothing in the blurb or in the information on NetGalley told me that. And if they had told me that, I probably wouldn't have requested it. Luckily, in the couple of cases, sorry, there's a car like screeching its tyre somewhere. Anyway, if I'd known, I probably wouldn't have requested it. However, luckily the couple where that's happened have been ones that I've been able to catch up with what's happening in the story anyway, or it's kind of been able to stand alone. So yeah, not on purpose. I mean, I collect the Saint-Germain novels by Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough, and they're a series, but they're not really an ordered series, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just sort of glancing around. I can't think of anything else. No, I think everything else I have read in order. Have you spoiled a book for someone? This is probably a yes, but again, not intentionally. I do my best to make sure my reviews don't contain spoilers, and I only talk about things very generically. If I'm going to talk about a particular plot point, I try to just edge around it and just say there was something in the plot I didn't like without revealing it. However, in conversation with people, I do sometimes get a bit more carried away, and I'll just rattle on and accidentally say something without really having in my mind that it's a spoiler. So once or twice, but never intentionally, and I try to avoid it as much as I can. And this is when we need my copy of Les Miserables Black, because the next question is, have you dog-eared a book? In general, I don't. I think pretty much every other book on this shelf is not dog-eared, except for maybe the poetry book I had at university, where I just needed to keep quick track of some of the poems that we were working on. But other than that, none of these are dog-eared. This is the exception, Les Miserables. It's because I come back to it a lot. It's one of my favourite stories ever, and it's been that way since I first read it when I was about 13 or 14, I think I was when I read this. And it is nice to be able to just slip straight to my favourite scenes if I don't have time or the inclination to reread the whole book. But in general, I don't like doing it. I prefer to use a bookmark, and I have a huge collection of bookmarks, although some of them are too pretty and I don't like to use them, so I usually end up just using some of the free ones from the book depository that I get when I order books from them. Next question. Have you said you don't own a book when you do? I don't think so. I mean, I don't really feel the need to be secretive about any books I read. I mean, I've got a complete gamut of types of literature here, everything from gay erotica through to the classics. So I don't think there's anything that I would think, oh no, I can't let anyone know I've got that. I'm pretty open. Have you said you haven't read a book when you have? I guess that links into the previous question in a way, really, that I don't feel the need to disguise what I've been reading. So no, I don't from the top of my head think I've ever done that. Have you skipped a chapter or section? Yes, but never in fiction unless they're rereads. And again, I'll wave Les Mis here at you, because this is a book I do try and come back to. However, there are all those really, really dull scenes about Waterloo in it that have pretty much nothing to do with the rest of the story. So when I reread, I do confess that I skip those. If I'm doing a full reread, I count a full reread as everything except the Waterloo scenes. But sometimes I skip the little bit at the beginning before Valjean really comes in as well. I mean, there's all that stuff at the beginning about the bishop and that before we get to Fantine and everything, and it's a little bit dull. We know about him. So the only other time I do it is sometimes in non-fiction. And it might be that I'm reading a non-fiction, like at the moment I'm reading a biography of Napoleon, and it's a really excellent biography. I'm really enjoying it. However, every now and again there's a chapter where there's a real concentration on a particular battle or something that's been happening. And while I'm not adverse to, or completely averse to finding out, did I say adverse? I mean averse, apologies. Although I'm not averse to finding out how he won the battles and things, if it drags on for too many pages, I may skim it a little bit. I won't miss the entire chapter in case it's something that I want to pick up from it, but I will start to skim read and read faster, and I read fast to begin with, so it's pretty fast. Just skim through the paragraphs, just stopping when there's something of interest until I get to the next chapter that talks about something else. And finally, the last question. Have you ever badmouthed a book you actually like? This is one of those yes and no questions for me again, I think. I mean, I'll take a prime example of the Twilight books by Stephenie Meyer. Now, I came to the books after seeing the first film. So I liked the film, and I started reading the books, and for a while I was quite into them. I think the problem was I found the story fairly enjoyable, the first read, But as I went back and started to dwell on them more, I decided I wasn't that keen on the prose, and there were certain aspects of the story, particularly Bella's representation in book 2, I know a lot of people nod their heads at that I didn't like, even though my initial reaction was, oh, it's an enjoyable story. As I reflected on it more, I decided I didn't like it as much. So you could almost interpret that. I say, yes, I liked the book originally, but I began not to like it the more I really thought about it. And so then I would tell people those sort of negative feelings as well. So it's one of those mixed things for me. Like, I'll watch the films, I'll read the books, but that initial interest in them waned the more I reflected on them. So that's all I can think of to say. So that was quite a fun little tag. I hope you agreed. I got it from another YouTuber on here, which I will pop a link to their page below in the spiel. I'm not going to particularly tag anyone, but if you want to join in the fun, do go ahead. And I will be back at the end of next month with one more of these special one-off videos before we get back into the normal book review talks. Bye for now.